Hello, please let me see your ticket stubs for the Double-Edged Double Bill. Tonight's films feature an escape from Inside Llewyn Davis. Each week, Adam Thomas and Thomas Mariani will come to the table to discuss the randomly selected yin and yang of a double feature. Then, both will have to pick a number between 1 and 10 in order to seal their fates for the next episode. One will have 2 good movies, the other 2 bad ones. Let the chaos begin! And I am Thomas Mariani.
And I am Adam Thomas. I didn't have anything this time.
Neither did I, no.
Yeah.
We are both creatively bankrupt for tonight's episode. We just hit 50 episodes, guys. Give us some slack.
Right. Yeah.
And, 50 episodes, Adam, with our gimmick, which, if you might be new, this might not be the best episode to start out with, necessarily, because it's a bit of history behind this one.
Yeah, I would say this would be the strangest one, possibly, to start out with.
Right, because usually we have a topic, and each week at the end of the previous episode, we each have 2 movies. One has 2 good movies, one has 2 bad movies, and we each pick a number between 1 and 10 in order to seal our fates for the double feature next week. And in the process of doing that for 50 episodes, we have some films that get left in the dust. About 100. It's actually more like 98. There was the week where one of us had our alternate good choice with the other one's alternate bad choice, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Like the week after, it was the Halloween and the Sam Raimi episode. Go back and listen to those. They're lovely. With that, basically, in case you couldn't tell, we had a bunch of films that we never covered because we had them as the alternate choice. So this week, we gave a good and a bad choice a redemption chance, where basically I had 2 of my former good picks, and we ended up with Inside Llewyn Davis, which was our pick from our episode 27 on the Coen Brothers, and then Adam had his bad choice, which is Escape from L.A., which was his alt choice from the dystopian fiction episode that we had. And it's interesting. I think this is something we might want to do in the future. This was a bit of an experiment because we hit 50.
Yeah.
Right.
And quite a toss-up.
Perhaps our most random double feature ever.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
I think so.
Did you find any connection revisiting these films?
No.
I would say I found one connection. It's more tenuous, but I think it fits validly. They're both extremely nihilistic movies.
Okay, I'll give you that. They're okay. I mean, that, like you said, that's tenuous, but sure.
Yes, for sure. But I think you would want to probably do this in the future at some point to give some other movies a fair chance and their spotlight, as it were.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think it'd definitely be worth a second go around, perhaps even a third, depending on how far we go.
Yeah, of course. But let's start off with first our good pick, which was Inside Llewyn Davis.
If I had wings, no words.
What'd you say you played?
Folk songs.
Folk songs. Thought you said you were a musician.
To the one I love.
Can I leave this cat with you?
With me?
It slipped out and I don't have the key.
Okay, let's hear something.
You don't want to hear the record?
Why should I? You're here. Play me something. Play me something from Inside Llewyn Davis.
Fairly well.
So, Inside Llewyn Davis is a film by the Coen Brothers, Joel and Ethan. It came out in 2013, December 6, 2013. It's one that got a lot of attention at the time it came out, but not necessarily a lot of awards attention. I feel like it's kind of gone to the wayside in the 6 or so years since it came out.
Oh, 100%. In fact, so much so where I thought I'd seen this, and turns out I haven't. But I completely had it confused with 3 different movies.
It does meld some of their stylistic stuff together.
Well, no, not even just the Coen Brothers movies. I thought, for some reason, The Place Beyond the Pines was one of them, which is completely different. But
yes.
One of the James Franco movies. I can't remember what the hell one was, but I completely had it confused. I did not realize what this movie was about. I thought he was some kind of poet, which I guess he kind of is. But yeah, So this was kind of a blind watch for me.
Okay, well, basically, for those of you who might not be aware, this is the Coen Brothers movie that stars Oscar Isaac as Llewyn Davis, the titular character, who is a folk singer in the early 60s, when you could actually go to different bars and just actually perform folk songs at that point. But he's near sort of the end of his rope, he doesn't have a lot of money, he's alienated pretty much all the people around him, and he's starting to realize that maybe I should get out of the game necessarily, but it's sort of like a day in the life examination of like him going through living in New York and kind of traveling from place to place and being a mooch, I think is the correct term.
Yep, I'd say that's accurate.
It's interesting. I remember watching this in the theater, and I remember it was one of those times where we talked about this in our Coen Brothers episode, where you watch a Coen Brothers movie the first time and might not always get immediately into it, but they're filmmakers that reward rewatches. It was weird where I haven't watched this since the theater, actually, but it was a weird thing where I kind of liked it when I came out of the theater, and then over the car ride back to my living space at the time, I thought really long and hard about it, and I realized I think it's one of my favorite Coen Brothers movies. And rewatching it, I would argue that stays very steadfast for me. But I'm curious, Adam, since you actually have not seen it before this watch, what were your thoughts on Inside Llewyn Davis?
Okay, I really did enjoy it. The acting is fantastic. The music is incredible. But I think I need to watch it again, because the whole time I'm watching, I'm going, nothing is really happening here. like, not much really happens. You kind of just follow this pricky guy around for like a week, and then that's kind of it. Like, it ends where it began. You know what I mean? So, but that being said, there are some scenes in this movie that, I was laughing my ass off, and then there's other scenes where I'm like, oh, Jesus, this fucking guy. But it was really good. It kept me interested. I'll put it that way. It didn't feel like an hour and 45. So, I mean, it's definitely one I would rewatch again.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because we have to talk about, this is sort of the breakout movie for Oscar Isaac. I mean, we've talked about him previously in stuff like Sucker Punch, where it's one of those movies where you walk back and it's like, oh wait, that's fucking Poe Dameron. I can't believe he was in this before, because no one saw it because it's a terrible movie. A similar thing is he's in the Jeremy Renner Bourne movie, The Bourne Legacy, at the very beginning of it. Oh my
god, he is, well, yeah.
He's the guy who gets blown up in the cabin when they're like in the middle of the wilderness for some reason.
Yeah.
But this was sort of the movie that broke him out and made him a bit more of a star. And it's interesting, of course, given also another Star Wars compatriot of his, Adam Driver's in this movie.
Yeah, he's awesome.
he's so great. But what's so compelling is, I agree, he's very much an asshole throughout this whole movie, and you don't really have, much of like to go on in terms of liking him, but at the same time, you're fascinated because he's a super flawed dude who gets why he's flawed, but also doesn't do a lot to change himself at the same time. Which makes him, I think, a very interesting character, if not the most likable.
I'd say it makes him a very realistic character, too. I know people like this guy. I mean, I probably am like this guy in some ways, where you sort of get complacent in your station in life, and you bitch about your station in life, but don't really do much to change it. He has an undeserved ego. Let's put it that way. And an undeserved sense of entitlement and narcissism, where it's like, you kind of fuck over everybody you know, like in one way or another, just to get by from couch to couch. But that being said, it's maybe just the way he performs it or something, but I came across like rooting for him at one point.
I think it helps also that he's very talented, which is sort of the tragedy, is that, because the big thing that's going on with him is he's been in a funk since he used to be a part of a duo that was actually pretty big and famous for a bit in the folk community, but his partner ended up committing suicide, and so he's been in a huge funk since then. So you can at least see why he'd probably be in that funk, and why everybody keeps bringing up, like, oh, hey, you used to be part of a duo, or especially F. Murray Abraham at the end.
Oh,
I don't know, you don't work.
That's soul crushing.
Yep, we're just like, well, you should get back together. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, that's good advice. That scene where he's singing that song, and it's a beautiful scene, and the camera's zooming in on F. Murray Abraham, and you're thinking, oh, he's hitting him, dude. And then he adds, I don't see a lot of money in this. Like, oh, no!
It hits so hard, especially because, like, he exhausts so many different options of trying to get around, where it's just like, oh, hey, I could maybe go to Chicago, or it's especially soul-crushing with the whole Please Mr. Kennedy thing. It's going to be a pretty big hit, and then it's like, you got the royalties, right? Yeah, except he signed off on them.
just so you can get $200 that day.
Yep.
Oh,
which you hear like stories like that all the time about people who were session musicians and end up getting screwed over because they wanted something quick immediately, and how much regret they have about that. But at the same time, you're at least compelled by like the reason he's doing that is because, oh, I need to get money to sponsor Carey Mulligan's abortion. But also at the same time, it's like, but you also put her in that situation, which, by the way, she is fucking phenomenal in this movie. She is so pitch perfect at playing a character that's admittingly kind of shrewish at points, but in a way that's super fucking funny. The whole bit about like condoms and like wrapping it up in duct tape and shit like that is hilarious.
Yeah, she almost steals the movie for me.
Yeah,
she was quite good in it. And way to go, Timberlake. When he popped up on screen, I'm like, holy fuck, what?
Right, and we've talked about this off mic actually about Justin Timberlake. Sort of his modern state has been a lot of just like he's trying to kind of recapture that bringing sexy back era of his career musically, and it's not working very well. But he's a very talented supporting comedic player when he's been in movies. And I wish he would play sort of more characters like this. It weirdly feels like he's kind of commenting on his current reality, where he's like goofy, affable dad type, in all honesty, because he's totally square in this movie. And that's part of the charm, is that he's very nice, he's very affable, but at the same time, he's so fucking corny. Like when he's talking to Llewyn Davis, and Davis is like, hey, who wrote this stupid Please Mr. Kennedy song? I did.
I know.
And he just comes. I wish you would play more parts like this. Just like go way more into like lean into the fact that what you are, dude. And I think you'll be a lot better off. And I think stuff like this, or even Bad Teacher, I thought he had a similarly pretty good dorky role in. I think if he kind of leaned into that more, he'd be so much more charming than like, no, look, I'm still hip. I'm still with it. Right. I like what the kids like.
I agree. How about that Coke Zero, huh? Yeah! Like,
you got that sunshine in your pocket, right?
Oh, God. But he is quite good in this. And just that part where you tell him, well, I did. And you get to see, like, the hurt in his eyes. Where he's like, fuck, man. But, I mean, let's just get into it. John Goodman stole the show.
He's so fucking great.
He's out of his mind, batshit crazy, dude. Oh, he fucking killed me. He's like, you threatened me? I learned what you people might call black magic from. He thought he was going to put a hex on him.
He comes in with the cat, and it's just like, oh, are you a double act with the cat? No, my partner actually killed himself. Sorry to ask where he threw himself off. The Washington Bridge? The Washington Bridge? The Brooklyn Bridge is where you throw yourself off.
Sorry, no offense, but he's fucking stupid.
Well, I just love the fact he feels almost like he would have been like the grandfather to his character from The Big Lebowski, who would have taught him everything he knows.
Yeah,
that's what he kind of feels like at the same time. And we mentioned the cat, and I think that's what's very interesting. Is you mentioned like, oh, there's not a lot going on. I love the Coen Brothers stated in an interview about like, yeah, we realized there wasn't much going on in the story, and we were concerned, so we added the cat. I think it added a lot of plot to it. Which, admittedly, the cat is sort of like the biggest recurring motif. And I think it's fascinating because the cat mirrors, obviously, Llewyn Davis in so many ways, where he just, like, travels all around, comes back to certain places. Even, like, the bit where he brings a cat back to the people who owned it, and they're like, this isn't our cat! Almost the identity crisis that's also going on.
Do you see his scrotum? Where is his scrotum, Llewyn? Oh, man. Yeah, where it just goes its own way, does its own thing, is nice to people when it needs to be, but it's constantly running away. It's completely him. I mean, it's a complete parallel. I also liked, was it Troy? Oh, man, he fucking killed me, too. Where he's sitting there eating the cereal. Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to be quiet and as to not wake anybody. Just him and John Goodman both are straight up Coen Brothers characters.
You're referring to the guy who's at Carey Mulligan's place initially. Yeah, right. He feels almost like a character like, man, if this movie was made like 10 years ago, this would be Tim Blake Nelson.
100%.
Yeah, in the best way though. And I think I agree, like he's a very fun character. Another one of my favorites, weirdly, especially upon this watch. I love Garrett Hedlund and how silent he is as the driver guy.
You mean Dennis Leary? From profile, he looks exactly like Dennis Leary. With the goatee and the cigarette and the hair. I mean, I swear to God, he looks like young Dennis Leary.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, but the fact that he just has, like, such a silent air to him, and then when John Goodman's overdosing on heroin, he's just like, he'll be fine. Let me just get back in the car.
Johnny Five. Yeah. How fucking hilarious. And, the cop, don't touch the merchandise. Get the fuck out of here. That part, too. That part blew my mind. He arrests him and they just drive off. Just leave Llewyn and John Goodman in the car. But one thing, too, I feel like we got to keep bringing it back to is the soundtrack to this movie. It's so wonderful. And this is totally up my alley with the type of music. I love folk music and things like that. And, I mean, this soundtrack is fantastic.
Right, and it was put together by T-Bone Burnett, who also did a similar thing with the Coens with Oh Brother Where Art Thou, obviously, which was a huge surprise hit in the early 2000s in terms of, like, the actual soundtrack. And you can find a similar sort of sensibility in terms of, like, really getting songs that match any of the situations that go on here. And I agree that, like, I'm not usually a fan of folk music necessarily, but the songs here, and especially how they're performed in context of the movie, I think are quite beautiful. Like, I've listened to that Fare Thee Well song, God knows how many times. And, of course, you know who the guy who plays the vocals of Llewyn's former partner is.
Yeah, Marcus Mumford.
Yes, of Mumford & Sons, and also husband of Carey Mulligan.
Yep. And, would you be better? I don't know what you're into. I'm guessing, like, K-pop.
Exclusively K-pop.
Exclusively K-pop. Or German industrial. Which is quite a wide spectrum. But, no, yeah, and that song alone, The Fare Thee Well, it's probably the best song in the movie.
And most of them are also traditional songs, where these are songs that have existed for a while in here. But I think what's so interesting about that song is that it's sort of the thesis statement of the movie. All of it, where it's just like, it feels like it is Llewyn's theme song in so many ways. He has to face a lot of just, like, letting go of people, whether it is his partner, or, like, a lot of the relationships that he's kind of come to know, or this cat, in certain situations at the same time. It's a movie about a guy...
Or his potential 2-year-old child.
Oh, God. I forgot about that until I rewatched it.
Oh, what the fuck.
Well, especially where, like, he finds out about that when he goes over to schedule the appointment for the abortion and pay for it. And he just finds out from the abortion doctor, like, oh, no, since it didn't happen last time... Last time?
Oh, you didn't know? She didn't tell you? Oh, she decided to carry it to term. Oh.
And he says, like, I believe she went over to Akron, right? And the way Oscar Isaac just looks off in the distance and says, yeah, her parents are in Akron.
So, in other words, he knows he has a kid out there somewhere.
Yes, and when later on he's on the highway and he sees the exit to Akron, and he looks over at it, and just sees, like, all that could potentially be there, it represents so much, like, his lost opportunity as a person. And how much he realizes how much he's just, like, really lost out somewhat because of fate, but also because of his own impulses that completely screw him over at the same time. Especially with, like, the music career, that's the fate thing, because folk music really didn't hit until that exclamation point at the end of this movie, like, oh, who's performing? Who's the other guy that's gonna be seen by the Times? Bob fucking Dylan.
Is he big in the folk music community?
He might be. I think he's done some hits.
I'm really not sure. I just don't, I know he's done some hits, just he never influenced anybody, and that was his downfall.
Probably, yeah.
But no, I'm so glad he didn't bust that right to go into Akron. For a second there, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to like this if he does this. It just wouldn't have felt right for the character to me. And then when he hit whatever he hit, I think might have been that cat, whatever was limping.
Yes. I believe it's a cat, because you see it briefly when he, like, has the headlights on it, yeah.
I could have swore for a second there he was going to bust a U-turn and go back. And I think they wanted you to think that was a possibility. But, again, I'm glad he didn't. I mean, you spend the whole movie with this sort of self-serving prick of a character, and for them to give him some kind of sweet ending redemption would have kind of ruined it.
Right, but I think it works because you see the thought process Oscar Isaac is going through that whole time of, like, maybe I should go that way.
Sure.
I should see this kid, obviously. But him realizing just, like, I probably shouldn't. That kid. It gives you that mixture of, like, he could see this kid, but he realizes, like, I wouldn't be a part of this kid's life at all. You see all that in his face. And I think
he's got zero to offer.
Yes.
He doesn't even have a winter coat. Which, by the way, that whole scene might be one of my favorite scenes of the movie as well. But yeah, the guy, I mean, he literally has nothing. He has to go to Chicago because he's got nowhere else to fucking go. And because he has to leave Adam Driver's house. So what else is he going to do? Jane doesn't want him to stay with her. He could stay at those other the Gorshik's house, but he fucking pulled that shit at their house, so he's literally out on his ass. This fucking guy. It's like you should hate him, but you can't. And I think that's a real credit to Oscar Isaac as well as the Coen Brothers. Obviously they're writing and directing. But Oscar Isaac, to me, I'm becoming more and more of a fan of his. It's not that I never was, but I was just like, he seems kind of douchey to me for some reason. But I'm becoming more and more of a fan of his because he can play pretty much anything. I mean, look at him as the adventure, like new Han Solo in the Star Wars movies, or this prick, or fucking super intimidating like in Annihilation or other movies where he's played the villain. I'm not talking X-Men. That was a waste. But he's really good, and he's a really strong actor to center a movie around. I think he's going to be definitely more of a mainstream leading man because as I understand, and I think we talked about this, the one movie that came out with him and Olivia Wilde is just a train wreck.
Oh, Life Itself?
Yeah.
Life Itself has many other problems that aren't related directly to Oscar Isaac.
Right.
It's weird where you think that he's like the lead of that movie. It's like, oh no, he's the lead of the first third of that movie because it's all very interesting. I really want to talk about that movie at some point. But anyway,
it's super, super pretentious.
Oh god, you have no idea. The Pandora's box we would open. But yeah, I agree. I think it's a real testament to like his both charm and also his ability to portray sleazy so well that he manages to do this. Even like the scenes where he's just ramshackling around in someone's apartment and he's like making eggs and shit. He has so much like veracity in doing something like that where you can tell he's a guy that has like a hot temper, but also at the same time there's sort of an aloofness where like he has this idea of like, oh no, I know how to control myself. He's a guy who lives one literal like up to 5 minutes at a time.
Yep.
Where he's just like, oh, I know how to get where I'm going to be 5 minutes from now. I know where I'm going to be 5 minutes after that, but I don't know from there.
She even poses the question to him. Like, don't you even think about the future? And his response is, what, like flying cars, cities on the moon?
So great.
Like, he just doesn't give a shit. He's moment to moment.
And especially when she's like, oh, you want to go to the suburbs? That feels careerist. It's like, oh, fuck you, what is that?
Fuck.
It's so great, but at the same time, you are extremely charmed by him because of his talent, and also by just he sort of has this charm that comes through every time you're around him. You do want to kind of hang out with Llewyn to have some beers. You don't want to hang out for much longer than that. But he has that kind of...
You gotta hope he's in a good mood before you do.
Oh, and that he doesn't say, like, hey, man, can I crash at your place? After that. That lack of responsibility, especially with, like, him falling behind with the cat. There's so many times where it's both the thing of, like, oh, man, you couldn't keep that cat out, but also... I have definitely had moments like that where I've house sat for somebody, and, like, the dog gets out, and I'm like, doggy, outside in the fucking lawn or some shit, and I'm just like, I gotta find this fucking pet. It's the one responsibility I have, and I'm fucking it up. Like, I have had moments like that at the same time. I agree that Llewyn is sort of, like, the worst parts of us that we don't really want to acknowledge. That aren't, like, monstrous, but at the same time are just kind of shitty. The parts that we just don't want to really quite directly face, because no, we're better than that, except in certain times you're not.
Right, 100%, yeah. He's what all of us want to be, but with money. Do you get what I'm saying? No cares, moment to moment, having sex and one-night stands whenever you want, drinking, playing music, living on the road, but he's just broke and a fuck-up. Dude, the biggest thing that shows how much of a douchebag this guy is when he heckles that woman.
Yes.
I mean, what a fucking douchebag, because the guy pissed him off, so he starts heckling her. Like, go fuck yourself. But I will say this, hell of a voice on Oscar Isaac. I mean, he can fucking sing, dude.
Well, and everybody, too. Most of these songs were performed live. And I was especially surprised by, like, Carrie Mulligan when she went up there, or, of course, the obliquely referenced Please Mr. Kennedy, but fucking Adam Driver.
Oh my god, he kills me.
Outer space!
I know. I know, it's so funny. And the way Llewyn's looking at him, like, what the fuck is this guy doing? It was so perfect. I definitely need to watch this again, which I don't say about a lot of the movies that we watch, because I'm definitely one of those people who have, like, you know, maybe 10 movies that I can watch on rotation. But for the most part, I'm usually a one-and-done sort of guy, but I definitely need to watch and revisit this one, probably soon. And for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's on Prime. I mean, take advantage of it.
Yes, and I should also say we mentioned in our previous episode about Roger Deakins being the big cinematographer that's worked with the Coen Brothers for so much of their careers, but this is one of the few in the last 25 years or so that he wasn't the director of photography on.
And you can tell,
right? And it's Bruno Debonel, who's a French guy who's done his biggest sort of start was Amélie, and he's worked with Jean-Pierre Jeunet a lot. And I love the cinematography here because it displays such an interesting perspective on the time, and especially it's all from Llewyn's perspective. I've heard some people who were around at this time say, "Oh man, it feels like such a dark, depressing version of what we lived through." People who this was kind of obliquely referencing and kind of based on have said as much. But I think it's so fascinating because it's so much from Llewyn's perspective that this is his view on what is a very romantic, lively, wonderful time. Because he's not having a good time during it. He's having the shittiest time possible. And he feels like he's a guy who's much in the way this movie looks like a fucking old, grainy, completely dilapidated photograph.
Yeah, that makes sense. Man, but you're right though. The cinematography in this is fucking gorgeous, and the soft light and everything like that. It really, really works. Because even their wardrobes and stuff they kind of do, but they're not really reflective of the 60s. A lot of people dress like this now. We call them hipsters.
Yes.
That soft light and the cinematography really sets its tone in 1961. The way it's shot, the filter on it, lets you know this is a period piece.
Well, especially when it's a period piece of one of those eras early in a decade where the decade hasn't quite made its distinctive touch. Because it feels like it's somewhere in between the 50s and the 60s, which is what is so great about, I think, what we're talking about in terms of the way it looks and the way the people dress. It's we're kind of transitioning out of a 50s era, but we don't know quite what that is. And the ringing endorsement of Bob Dylan at the end of that, it's the signal of the 60s coming in.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's
also
the herald of the hippies.
Right, and that's also the point of Llewyn just realizing, I'm lost in the dust. It's just even but I love the fact that it's him looking at that guy, and he's like, who the fuck is this guy? Not knowing that, oh, your entire world is going to fucking cave in.
Right. This guy is now folk music. Expertly done. I really did enjoy this movie. Like I said, it's just, I gotta go a second time because I think I'm going to really, really love this movie after a second watch. I can easily see this jumping into my top, 3 of the Coen movies. Easily. Probably not number 1. It's hard to top, Raising Arizona for me. But it's definitely going to be up there.
Well, I guess those will serve as your final thoughts. And I will agree that I really do love this. This is the second time seeing it. You do notice a lot more details here. You do see, especially the moment we kind of talked about where he hits that cat and sees that cat kind of shamble around. Is another example for me of man, the Coen Brothers really need to do a horror movie because that feels like an image from
that would be something special, I think.
I would really love to see what they would kind of do with that genre, and I think you can see details of that, but this is more in concept with the horrors of lacking legacy, the horror of realizing you don't really mean much to the world of this folk music, this art you've devoted yourself to, and also in the process of alienated any of the connections you've had before. So you just end up as a nothing of a person. To the fact where you won't even get into the fucking military because you haven't renewed your license, which is such a great little detail as well.
I know, he pays his dues and they won't give him back 4 hours later.
You can't repay your dues.
But by military, not really. He's in the Merchant Marines.
Basically. But that's the thing, is he can't even get into that lower level rung of the military in any regard. That Llewyn Davis is so far down on the totem pole. But yet at the same time, you're curious about him. You're not necessarily endeared, but you're fascinated to see him. And I think it's a real testament to the way the Coens write that character, and also to Oscar Isaac, and all the cast is great. As you mentioned, yes, the soundtrack, as the kids say, slaps. It slaps pretty hard.
Is that what they say now?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm so behind. Age is coming toward me.
I've never even heard that.
It's probably what they said 6 months ago, and now they're saying something else. I'm not sure of. But anyway, it's definitely, it's one of my favorites for sure. I would still say I agree. Raising Arizona is my favorite, or I still love Fargo and Big Lebowski as well. But this is very much in that top 5 for me. Especially, I think it's my favorite of the very recent ones they've done. And yeah, so definitely, if you have not seen Inside Llewyn Davis, seek it out for sure. And it got its chance at redemption, and now I guess in a case of redemption.
I don't know that I would go that far.
Maybe not. It got a chance to be talked about, because it's our bad feature, Escape from L.A.
Your rules are really beginning to annoy me.
We ran a psycho profile on him using a database of 5 million sociopathic personalities. He hit the bottom of the curve.
Catches on quick, doesn't she?
This town loves a winner.
You got a problem with that?
Yeah.
So, Escape from L.A. It's kind of a bummer this is our first John Carpenter movie we talked about on the show.
Oh my god, it is.
Yeah, we came close with the Halloween series, but yeah.
Oh, bummer.
But yes, this is Escape from L.A., which is a sequel to his movie from 1981, Escape from New York, which came out in 1981. Meanwhile, this came out in 1996, and is a much more bigger budget affair. Stars Kurt Russell returning as Snake Plissken. And we should briefly talk about Escape from New York, because I will say that is personally my favorite John Carpenter movie.
It is not my favorite, but it's in my top 3. I still give the edge to Halloween. I'm one of those. I mean, I don't even know if I can say that anymore. Escape from New York might be my favorite John Carpenter movie.
I mean, it's always, like, for me, it's neck and neck with, like, The Thing. Those two wrestle often.
It's The Thing. Never mind. Yeah, The Thing's my favorite. I always forget about that. That's John Carpenter for some fucking reason. No, yeah, The Thing's my favorite. Then probably New York, and then either Halloween or even, like, I love Starman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Escape from New York was just such a huge movie to me when I was a kid. I thought Snake Plissken was the coolest guy ever. I had a huge crush on Adrian Barbeau. I mean, there's just so much going on. Donald Pleasance, so it's like, oh, Dr. Loomis. And then this happened.
Right, which we should say that, like, the big impetus for this happening was less John Carpenter and more Kurt Russell. Because Kurt Russell, who stars as Snake Plissken, was a huge fan of that character and always wanted to play him, kept hounding John Carpenter, like, let's make another one, let's do it. Come on, let's do another one. Come on, let's do it. Yeah. And they finally did it with this one, which was not nearly as well received when it came out in 96. It was a pretty big bomb. Maybe the big catalyst for Carpenter kind of stopping to make movies, though he did make, like Vampires, right?
And then Vampires, Ghosts of Mars, and I believe The Ward, and I think that's it.
Right, after, to be fair, that's like a decade in between The Ward and Ghosts of Mars, yeah.
But yeah, I think he only had three more movies after this one. Which, yeah, there's a reason.
Because it's weird that they made this sort of like a bigger tentpole movie, because what I love about Escape from New York is that it's so much more of like a low-budget affair that builds a world so masterfully. Despite that, like, it's definitely the greatest example, one of the great examples of, like, economy of storytelling, and also of, like, using your limited budget where it really needs to work. Because so much of that movie is cascaded in shadow, and you don't see quite a lot of New York, but you see enough to be immersed in, like, oh, New York has gone to shit.
There's a lot of alleyways and stairwells and shit like that. I mean, like you said, it feels like New York. It feels like it just got torn to shit, and it's post-apocalyptic, and great minimal sets, but when they needed to spend the money, they did, like on the bridge scene and things like that. But fuck. Yo, okay. The $50 million for this went all to set design. There's no question.
Well, and also the effects for the time.
No, they were not good. I remember them being bad then.
Well, yeah, but I would say they're bad, but also they sort of feel like of 96, like he definitely spent a lot on those bad effects. Like there's so many.
It's so PlayStation.
It is. It totally is.
It totally is, especially the shark.
Or right for that great Universal Studios bit that happens. Yeah.
Yep. And the fucking surfing. Peter Fonda. I mean, I just wish I could, like reach through the screen like fucking Samara and just punch him in the face. He gets on my fucking nerves so bad in this movie.
Dude, what are you talking about, bruh? Come on.
You're Snake Plissken. Oh, man, big wave's coming. Gonna ride it, hang 10. Like, what, dude? You're like fucking 60. Stop it. Grow up. You fucking piece of shit.
This was your pick, by the way. And
I picked it because I hate it. Because when we said bad, I went bad. Like, my dystopian movies, were really bad, my choices. I mean, I had that awful Death Race and then this. So either way, I was going to be mad. I will say I do enjoy Steve Buscemi in this, though.
Oh, he's amazing.
And I love Bruce Campbell's little cameo. I think that's a pretty good scene as the surgeon. But other than that, I mean, Pam Grier. Oh, how just inappropriate and mishandled. And then Cuervo Jones. Get the fuck out of here.
I've seen this before, and I really disliked it the first time.
Sure.
This time upon watching it, I'll say it slightly improved for me in as much as I don't hate it, but it's still a massive disappointment, I think, because weirdly, it feels less like a sequel and far more like a remake of Escape from New York. It hits all the same beats of the first movie.
100%.
Yeah.
There's nothing new here, and what they repeated, they did worse. It's a poor remake. I mean, even as far as the cast of the soldiers and the president, they're subpar. Like, Stacy Keach, I don't know if I like Stacy Keach or not. But, like, Cliff Robinson is just overacting so bad. Dude, it's just a fucked up shit movie. The basketball scene. Get out of here with this fucking movie, man.
Well, I think what the problem sort of is there is you mentioned sort of like it's got like this basic structure of that first movie, but also when it wants to have like the big giant moments, it decides to go in a very silly direction in a way that I'm not necessarily saying that Escape from New York is a extremely underplayed movie. Like even Donald Pleasance, like one of my favorite things about that movie is going, "You're the Duke, you're the Duke." But
Donald Pleasance is over the top always, though.
But I think what works about that though is in earlier parts of the movie he's not quite that over the top necessarily. He's a lot more reserved, he's a lot more quiet, and the movie builds up to moments like that. Versus in this case, the movie just kind of starts off willy-nilly with like his whole submarine chase that we kind of obliquely mentioned, where he's going through like, oh, sharks and shit. Oh, it's going big zany. It feels like John Carpenter definitely was more interested in like, how can I go zany here? Because it doesn't feel like his heart's quite in this. Obviously, because of how much he wasn't so huge on coming back to it until Kurt Russell fucking strong-armed him into doing it. But I'll say, as much as like I have a lot of issues with the movie around him, I still think Kurt Russell is very committed to that character and does a pretty good job, even if it's, like I said, a lesser movie. I think he still captures a lot of that Snake Plissken arrogance and charm.
Oh, no, he's totally, like, in character. I mean, yeah, no. You could tell that this is his bread and butter. He absolutely loves playing Snake Plissken. And you could tell he's having fun. Like, talking like this. Shit like that. It's totally a field day for him. No one else around him is at that level properly. They're either way over the top or not giving a shit. And I think that's where the movie really falls apart. If this was just a camp fest, like clearly John Carpenter was treating it, I think it might have worked. But the whole problem is your main star is trying to keep it grounded in, a fictional reality, but in reality nonetheless. And it's just a mess. The tone is so all over the place here. Like, is it an action movie? Is it a comedy? What the fuck is it?
Well, what it feels like especially also is this feels around the time of John Carpenter getting super bitter and curmudgeon-y, and it feels like kids these days kind of thing, where there's so much of like a love of like, oh, why do people have their gadgets and technology and gizmos? What does that get you? You feel lost from humanity. It feels like there's a lot of that going on here, and Snake is being kind of very judgy in that way about people, whereas what I love about Snake in the original movie is that Snake has no loyalties whatsoever, no loyalties to nostalgia really, just like he has a respect for certain people that help him out, but he still is ultimately at the same time like, because like that first movie, it's weird where it's technically an action movie, but it has so little action in it. It's more of like a Western dystopia movie, where it's just like the man with no name coming in and barreling through these hordes of like gunslingers, or in that case like weird mutant New Yorkers. Like, that's what's so much more interesting than, and this movie has more of a direct, like, no, we're zany sci-fi over the top, and we also have some satirical elements, and fuck technology and these kids.
Hang gliders, woo!
Hang gliders. I kind of love how stupid the hang gliders are, though.
That's so stupid.
Where they're dive bombing Disneyland, technically, it's...
That sucks. No, I agree with you. It's... In fact, the first one, the biggest action scene I can remember is the bridge scene. not a lot of it sticks out. I just remember, loving the movie. But this one, I mean, there's the hang gliding, there's the motorcycle chase, there's the basketball scene, there's just on and on and on and on and on, and none of it is effective. I mean, the hang glider scene you remember because how fucking stupid it is. It doesn't work. It's ridiculous. And the explanation for it is even worse. Oh, man, it would take us, 2 days to get there by car. Got anything faster? Yeah, hang gliders. Good thing there's a fucking powerful enough gust of wind in the direction you need to go. Like, get the fuck out of here with this. It is ridiculous. And thank God that they didn't try again with Ghosts of Mars.
Right, that was originally supposed to be Escape from Mars in that case, and they kind of rewrote it after this movie didn't do very well. I mean, I agree that, like, especially people keep talking about, like, oh, we're going to remake Escape from New York, and it just feels like a fool's errand at this point, because someone tried here and it didn't quite work. Because I think even John Carpenter lost sight of, like, with that sort of character and that sort of story, it's not about the big action set piece or even that much about the satirical elements. The satirical elements come in and out of that movie, and it's great more because, like, Snake Plissken is this guy who sort of is like an agent of chaos and doesn't necessarily give too much of a shit about you, especially if you don't have, any kind of... if you try and present a loyalty that you have and it's actually completely fake. That's what's so genius about that ending bit where he gives Donald Pleasance the tape, is that Donald Pleasance actually has no real loyalty to anybody, but pretends to have this artifice of it. Whereas Snake Plissken's like, I'm the genuine article, and I can do that. Which, I will also give credit, though, I actually kind of like the daringness of that ending in this movie. I think the ending has a pretty ballsy conceit of just like, Snake Plissken does not appreciate the artifice that these guys are going for, and uses their own artifice of the virtual reality hologram to fuck with them and destroy all technology on Earth.
Which is insane. Yeah. What do you think about it? I mean, that's the acts of a crazy person.
Yes.
But, no, I agree with you. The ending is the ultimate, like, fuck you, I do what I want sort of thing for Snake Plissken. But, I mean, they give him the flu. Didn't you learn the first time? Come on.
Well, I mean, in the first movie, they actually had an explosive device in him, and they managed to get it out, like, 2 seconds before. As opposed to, like, this is, like, a completely different case where it's like, no, we didn't even give you an explosive device, motherfucker. It's a flu.
Right. And they tell him, Hershey tells him, like, dude, that's not even what they did to you. It's not even real. And he's still like, gotta get it out of me. Like, you don't trust her enough on that part, but you trust her enough to use her hang gliders to go start a revolt? What the fuck is this movie even about? Like, it's so bullshit. It's such bullshit. Like, their ultimate weapon is to do blackouts.
Right. I mean, yeah, I agree. I think it very much, it doesn't have that sort of solid economic, like, concepts of, like, what exactly is going on, like Escape from New York does. But at the same time, some of those twists they do on the original formula, at least, are the most interesting things. Like, obviously, the Travel with the Stars Eddie, Steve Buscemi's character, is very much a take on Cabby. But he's way more of, like, a sleazy villain who doesn't actually give a shit about Snake at all, but just kind of, like, clings on him like a parasite. I think that's a great dynamic. Especially, I love the bit where Snake is getting knocked out by him. He's just like, hey, yeah, can you believe this is fucking Cuervo's car? I just drive it around.
Yeah, he lets me drive it sometimes.
He's telling him all this, and Snake is fucking just conking out. I love scenes like that.
Yeah,
or when he comes in... Oh, he's such a weasel. It's so perfect. Or when he comes down the glider and it just fucking falls apart.
Yeah, he hits the fucking awning. Hey, Cuervo, look, I brought Snake to you. I'm like, what? This fucking guy, he's always trying to play an angle and he's not good at it. And anyway, everybody, and that's the thing too that I love about his character. Everyone, Hershey, Cuervo Jones, Snake Plissken, anyone in the movie just reads through his bullshit the entire time. But he constantly thinks he's pulling one over on him.
And then when he's like, you better come back, Snake, after he jumps out of the helicopter.
What the fuck?
Like, I love all that shit, but at the same time, it makes the moments where, like, they try and repeat the formula and it fails all the worse. With, like, their attempt at, like, the Adrienne Barbeau character, for example, fell so flat. Where they try and put that entire arc of her character into, like, 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah, with, oh, God, what's her name from Hot Shots?
Valerie Galina?
Yeah. Right, it's 5 minutes, and then when she gets killed, Snake is supposed to care. He was literally going to leave her there.
Right. Yeah, but he suddenly has this conscience, as opposed to when you get to, like, Snake Plissken and Adrian Barbeau's character in that movie, she has so much character and so much history that she portrays just through the way she, like, talks to Harry Dean Stanton, or even to Snake at certain points at the same time, to where, like, when she hands over, she asks for the gun from Snake, and to stay on that bridge, that means a lot. There's so much that goes into that, despite not knowing this character that long. It says so much about her, and what, like, Harry Dean Stanton meant, all this other stuff. It's almost if we're talking about Escape from New York a bit more, maybe we should save that for if we ever actually talk about that movie.
I mean, yeah, definitely, but it's just a far superior film to this basic remake. Mm-hmm. I mean, this movie could only almost apply for a remake episode. It's just, like you said earlier, it's a huge example of bigger budget does not equal a better movie at all. I mean, at all. This movie is just so formulaic and such a ripoff of his own material. I just don't understand. I just don't understand why obviously he didn't give a shit. Like you said, this is all Kurt Russell wanting to do it and begging and pleading. Well, if Carpenter didn't want to do it, he's a big, like, you take it, do what you want with it. Someone else could have done this movie.
I just want to smoke weed, watch basketball, and play video games. That's literally what he does now. And he's so much happier. Let him do that.
Sometimes be really shitty and mean, and other times be like the nicest guy you've ever met. You don't know.
Yeah, let him play his synthesizer music. He's pretty good at it still. He can keep doing that.
He's actually really fucking good at it. Somebody else could have done this and potentially... I mean, I guess somebody did. His name was Luc Besson. With Lockout.
Right, a movie he literally got sued for doing a ripoff of Escape from New York for.
As he should have, because that movie was entirely a Snake Plissken movie.
Yep.
But it was fun. It was still kind of fun and entertaining. I mean, somebody else could do something like this. I don't want to see a remake. I wouldn't even have a problem if they maybe continued the franchise, just got a different actor, even though Snake Plissken is very much, but then get Wyatt. Wyatt Russell was fantastic.
I would love to see like a Fury Road style thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or someone even though, to be fair, that's a weird example where that was someone who did direct the other movies and somehow did the best job possible of following that up. At like fucking 75 or whatever.
Whatever he is, George Miller is still just fucking cranking it out. But you could do another Escape movie, and like I said, Wyatt Russell would be a perfect choice. He fucking rocked the shit in Overlord.
And, I would almost love to see that, and you have Kurt Russell play sort of like the villain who's taken over whatever territory.
Play the president.
Or the president. I could see that, but I would love to see him more as like a sort of Duke of New York type.
Sure.
I think he could really play that character pretty well, and sort of have that confrontation with Wyatt necessarily. I think that.
Or what a fucking flip to make Snake Plissken the actual bad guy and the Duke, and then a new guy going against him.
Yeah. I think there's so many different ways you could go with it. I agree. I think you could do that. I don't know. Who would you want to see do that necessarily, though?
Like, direct it?
Yeah.
I'm kind of on his stick right now because of Alita. I could see a Rodriguez. I think, even watching like the Desperado movies or even Once Upon a Time in Mexico, he's got sort of the eye for sort of just out there action.
I think you're underestimating, to be fair, how much of a hand James Cameron had in helping Robert Rodriguez out, given how much of a gulf there was between a good Robert Rodriguez movie before.
You know what? You might be right.
I mean, I like Alita too, but also just like James Cameron clearly had a very big hand in this for a lot of reasons.
That's probably true.
He could also be on a comeback. I don't know. Let's see the next movie, Robert. Let's see how that goes. But
yeah, whenever the fuck that might happen. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
No, not necessarily. But, I also wouldn't mind someone... He kind of did this with... he's in a bad state right now, but Neil Marshall, since he did that kind of with Doomsday...
yeah, I could see that.
I don't know if he's getting another studio job after Hellboy, necessarily.
I would say it's going to be a little while.
Yeah, I would say so, too. But I think he could do something interesting with that, too. But then again, it's all to say that John Carpenter wasn't necessarily the best person to do that at this time with whatever this was, necessarily. Correct. So I guess go into your final thoughts, then, on Escape from L.A., Adam.
I don't even think of this as a sequel to Escape from New York. I think Escape from New York was a single standalone movie, and I can almost see this as, like, a fan homage movie. I don't... see this as a sequel. I think this is just a complete misstep in pretty much every direction. It's a copy of something that was already great by the same people who made the original, and this is just a complete subpar version. That if that's not proof that, you know, lightning in a bottle, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to mix all the metaphors. And that's not proof lightning built Rome in a day. Then I don't know what is, because you get the same people with a bigger budget and they can't do it. This is just a complete failure.
It's a good example of maybe you can never go home again.
Right.
Right, necessarily.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Unless you're George Miller. You can go home anytime and come in and out.
We're fine with it. You make it work. You fucking genius.
You mad Australian bastard. You can do that. But yeah, I mean, I agree, because I think it's interesting in terms of John Carpenter's career up to that point. Like, obviously, his heyday was late 70s through the 80s. He was such a phenomenal talent. And I think this is a pretty good picture of, like, a guy who has been beaten down by a studio system with so many different movies that in the 90s that were either complete, like, sort of like direct for hire jobs that didn't work out, like Memoirs of the Invisible Man. Christine. Well, no, Christine was in the 80s, though, and I would argue he had at least a bit more of his influence in there, especially compared to his Village of the Damned remake, for example.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Which isn't even that terrible of a film, it's just bland. He's not in it at all. Like you said, it's a complete studio film. There's no John Carpenter in that movie.
Right, or even when he did actually get something that, like, really felt like his own kind of distilled image of, like, In the Mouth of Madness.
Oh, which we've talked about before, which is... That actually might be my favorite Carpenter movie.
It's pretty goddamn great.
It's pretty fucking great.
But yeah, when something like that doesn't do very well at all, I think you get something like this that feels like it's a weird combination of, like, studio for hire and also trying to recapture old glory, and it just doesn't feel like it necessarily works at this point. This feels like him on the outs as a director, really. This is him on his sort of last legs, and even those other movies that he did afterward weren't very good either. I would say arguably worse than Escape from L.A., but this was, I think, the big canary in the coal mine of, like, this, he might not be coming back after this point. And, yeah, I don't hate it, though, as much as I did at the same time earlier. I think there's enough little bits and pieces where I don't hate it necessarily. And I would say it's a sequel, I would argue, with Escape from New York. It's just that it's a super disappointing one that we kind of have to acknowledge. And I think it's sort of a poster one that we should put up for anybody that tries to do a legacy sequel, which we've been getting so much of in recent years.
I hate that term so much.
I mean, but it's valid, and I think it is definitely a poster child for, like, this is how you don't do it. You don't repeat the same things, and then also just try and gussy it up with bigger effects. That does not a good sequel make, even no matter how long it's been, and no matter how committed someone like a Kurt Russell is, it doesn't save this from being pretty disappointing. For sure. And that's the end of our little redemption double feature. We want to read some feedback, of course, because over at the Facebook and Twitter pages at DEDBpod, we ask all of you out there for, hey, what are your favorite and least favorite examples of a topic we're doing? And we shared the list of all those movies that we didn't cover for you guys, and we asked, what ones would you want to see us cover at some point?
And you know what? If anything shows that, you know, people care and listen.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Because they have our interest at heart, and also maybe just curiosity to see some of these movies be discussed. And including from Lance Langford of the Horror Returns podcast, says, Cabin Boy. Adam said, those pipes are clean. Brian Citrus, also of the Horror Returns, says Boogie Nights and The Neverending Story. Anna Robertson says Lady in the Water, Airplane 2, and Inside Llewyn Davis. James Rodriguez says, Bound is my favorite film of the Wachowskis, and I'd love to hear you guys talk about it. I'd also say Nutty Professor 2 The Clumps, because I want to hear the reactions of you guys to one particular hamster-related moment. Kara Holden says, from Adam's picks, Beverly Hills Cop, Blues Brothers 2000, Stand By Me, Matinee, Tremors, Escape from L.A., and then from Thomas's picks, Dreamcatcher, Predator, The Nightmare on Elm Street remake, Sorry to Bother You, and Professor 2, and Tank Girl. Luke McBride says Lady in the Water and Star Trek Into Darkness. Brian Kane says, I unironically love Battle Los Angeles. The acting and cliche story beats are rubbish, of course, but I love the many World War II homages, alien design, and the effects work. So, of course, I'd love to hear you guys eviscerate it. And Will Torres says, The Man with Two Brains, or Hot Shots. And Adrian Cardenas says, Walk Hard and Scarface.
Okay, So I don't know what Lance is trying to say with that one, with his little comment. I know the movie Cabin Boy, but I don't know why he's referencing me in the quote. So I'm going to take it as an insult and tell him to go fuck himself. But everything that people mentioned, I would love to cover. I think there's a lot of good films that we've missed. And Brian, no. Bad Los Angeles, buddy. Come on, buddy.
I'm not your friend, buddy. One actually I just rewatched recently, James mentioned Bound, which was actually your bad choice for way back when we did like the heist movies. And I rewatched that recently. I really dig Bound a lot. I think that one actually holds up pretty well. It's one of their better.
See, I haven't seen it since the first time I watched it. Maybe I should rewatch it. Maybe it'll change my opinion. I probably won't, though.
That back pocket, though, for sure.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and there's some other ones here, like I've championed Walk Hard many a time. I also would love to discuss like a matinee. Especially the ones I really want to go back to are the ones that feel the most under-discussed. Ones that just haven't been like brought back up to the table that much. Even especially like I kind of have held off on doing more 2018 movies since we did 2 2018 episodes. But Sorry to Bother You is one of my favorite movies from that year.
I've been meaning to. Every time I go to, something else comes up, but I definitely do want to watch that. And I'm really digging Lakeith Stanfield right now. So I definitely do want to see it because that guy is going places. So I'd like to see some of his earlier stuff before he literally blows up. I mean, that guy, not literally, Jesus, he's not going to die. Nobody's attacking him. But
don't put that out in the ether, Jesus Christ.
Hail Mary. Anyways, I heard that movie goes off the fucking rails.
It's pretty goddamn great. But yeah, thank you all for sharing that with us. And we also want to thank Chris Oliver for the music used in our show and the intro and the outro. Listen to more of his music at chrisoliver.bandcamp.com. Thanks to Emily Scarda for the art for our show. She accepts commissions at 5with2rs.com/EEScarda. And you can find us on Twitter and Facebook, as we mentioned, at DEDBpod, where we'll post a lot of different things, like links to the episode, and of course those questionnaire posts we usually do on Mondays for that. And we're also at doubleedgedoublebill@gmail.com for any kind of, just actual written out feedback you want to do. You can email us over there. And I also have my own individual account at NotTheWho'sTommy on Twitter, and Instagram also on for that as well. And I do writing at marianithomas.wordpress.com. And you can find Adam just trying to get his music right down, man, and just get with the folk scene.
Don't harsh my gig, man. No, yeah, I have nothing. I have Facebook. Even then, I don't really do anything on there. So don't.
You repost memes and show pictures of your kid. That's basically
that's literally it. It's memes. I repost, when our show is out, and the topic questionnaire, and then pictures of my kid, and that's it. So I'm really boring. Don't try to find me, and if you do, you're not gonna like what you find.
And we also want to encourage you all to subscribe to us on iTunes and to please rate and review us to give the show more visibility. And we've been kind of, maybe been a bit oppressive about asking our fans to do that, but someone did. Adam,
what?
It's our first iTunes review in a while. We have it right here. It's 5-star. It's a 5-star review from Easiac0333. It's titled Simply Entertaining. And he says, from the first time I listened to this, it became one of my favorite podcasts. They deserve every one of those 5 stars. Thank you!
You know what? I'm going to throw it out right now. Hey, Beziak0333, if you can find me on Facebook, send me a message. I will send you a t-shirt. I will send you a Double-Edged Double Bill t-shirt.
Yeah, we do have a limited supply of t-shirts. We've been
limited supply.
To do something with. Yes, very limited.
There's, I think, 20. But I will send you one. If you get a hold of me on Facebook, send me a message with your iTunes username so I know it's you, and then we will talk. I will get your info, and I will send you out a shirt.
Yes, and we do appreciate other people potentially doing that. Shirt's not a guarantee.
No, shirt is definitely not a guarantee. In fact, nobody else gets one. Fuck everyone.
No. But thank you all for all of that. And now, Adam, it's time for our picking for next week. And next week's very special, Adam, because it's our 52nd episode, which means it's the end of our first year. of doing the show.
So phase 2 will start.
Oh, how appropriate, Adam, given... what's our topic for that time?
I think we're doing the MCU in honor of A, Endgame, and B, our first episode was Marvel movies. Not MCU, but they were Marvel movies, so we're kind of throwing back a little bit, too.
Well, right, I mean, we did one MCU movie, which was the first Iron Man. That was our good movie, that episode. And then Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance.
Ghost Rider killed all that, though. It killed. Yeah.
Right, which is that part of the MCU? Maybe back to
No.
the pilot?
No.
It has about as much to do as, like, Incredible Hulk does. With the
Yeah, but at least
MCU
Incredible
proper.
Hulk has Robert Downey in it.
Well, that's true. And also, they actually brought back William Hurt, which, remember that in Civil War? You're like, what the fuck? He's back?
Right? Yeah, no, 100%. I'm like, wait a second. Wow, okay.
It's crazy,
But
yes.
that works.
But yes, we are doing the Marvel Cinematic Universe because, as you mentioned, Endgame is coming out, and we're all on pins and needles waiting to see how that first huge part of that series ends and transitions into the new one. Destined to be pretty much the biggest movie of the summer, unless Ugly Dolls makes it somehow. It could. Who knows?
What a fucking joke.
But for that, Adam, you have the 2 good choices, and I have the 2 bad choices. And so, I will pick a number between 1 and 10 for your choices, and same for me. You for my choices. And so, for me, I'm gonna pick number 7.
At number 9, I have the Taika Waititi Thor Ragnarok.
Alright.
Which is just phenomenal.
It's a lot of fun, yeah. What was
It's
your
a
other
lot.
choice?
Number 2 was Captain America the Winter Soldier.
Alright.
So, I mean, no big surprises here.
No.
Let's be honest. We know what the good ones and the bad ones are, and I think everybody kind of unanimously agrees. But still, for your bad, I'm going to go number 3.
Oh, Adam.
Oh, no.
Oh, Adam. I'm so happy that we got that, because at number 4, I have a movie that kind of contradicts what you were just talking about. Because, we all universally agree on what the good and bad ones are. I have a movie that we have talked about mutually disagreeing on. Yes, at number 4, I have 2013's Iron Man 3.
Oh, motherfucker, I knew it.
Yep.
Oh, god damn it.
Yep. We're gonna do this. No. I recently rewatched that movie and I still think it's pretty dope. I can't wait to discuss this. This will be a lot of fun.
This is gonna be rough. I'm gonna shit all over this.
Season finale, motherfucker. Shit gets weird.
Oh, yeah. No, this is gonna be bad. This is gonna be bad for you. I'm gonna get angry.
It's gonna be pretty harsh. And then at number 7, I had The Incredible Hulk. Because
I kind of like The Incredible Hulk, so...
Yeah.
You go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Have you watched it recently?
A couple years ago.
Yeah, I did too before I rewatched it recently too. Anyway, so that is the end of our discussion here for the day, our episode. Tune in next week when we're going to be at each other's throats and hopefully not damage our guests in the process. But until then, let's go ahead and sing our redemption song, Adam.
Long live the Tooch.
A man who needs no redemption at the time of recording.
Well, we don't. I don't know that Netflix movie though.
What are you talking about? I love A Quiet Place 3. It looks great.
Basically.
Anyway, good night, everybody.
Good night.